Good day once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being so fast in moving from one room to another one. It's always hard to leave all of the tasty things behind, but you've managed to do that. And our next panel and discussion is going to be the open data as a main driver for Ukrainian economics, and I would like to once again outline that the open data can be used by the civil society representatives and businesses, but in our opinion the main value for the open data is that they bring the real economical impact. And that is something we're going to be discussing today at the discussion, so I would like to invite Katerinu Onilioglu to join us at the discussion. But before that, we're going to watch a video that is going to once again emphasize everything that I've said before.
Open data is bringing huge benefits to Ukraine. It brings business certainty because it makes it easy for people to see what they need to do to create a business. It enables people to bring new products and services to market because data is a raw material for so many of the online applications that we use today.
У всьому світі сфера відкритих даних – це не тільки питання антикорупційності і відкритості, але й створення додаткової вигоди для економіки країни. І в різних країнах досить багато було досліджень, скільки приносять відкритих даних для економіки. 53 мільярдів євро з останніми дослідженнями.
So in 2017, the Open Data Institute collaborated with the Kiev School of Economics to conduct research into the economic value of open data in the Ukraine. The report found that in 2017 alone, open data brought $700 million US of value to the Ukrainian economy. This is through government savings, a better use of public spending, open procurement practices. It's estimated that open data has contributed to 3,000 to 4,000 jobs in the Ukraine, employing data analysts, researchers, and also startups and entrepreneurs that have created new services and applications that are driven and fed through open data. If we continue on this trajectory, the researchers estimated to see $1.4 billion of US being added to the economy by 2025.
Open data has direct and indirect impact on Ukrainian economy. So direct impact is when startups and businesses create products and services using open data. Indirect impact is when citizens using the services to make the quality of their life better. The most famous example is Open Data Bot. This is a startup that was created because registers and companies' data became available in Ukraine. And open data is the core of their business model. Indirect impact is when small and medium businesses use Open Data Bot and in few seconds can find out information about their partners in business, which protects companies from any risk of doing business in Ukraine.
Open Data Bot is a platform that uses Ukrainian citizens to understand what government know about them, what kind of data government publish about them and their business.
And the demand for open data in Ukraine is so high that every year we run Open Data Challenge, a national competition of IT projects using open data to support teams in developing their products to make impact for citizens.
Law and entrepreneurs live in different realities. We started Start Business Challenge with a simple idea. A baker shouldn't read laws to understand what he needs to do to comply with the legal requirements. So we built a service for this. A baker comes at regulation.gov.ua, picks a baker, answers some questions, and gets a manual. And it takes all of the guesswork out. Legal database released in the form of open data is what we built on top of. So each answer you get as a baker gets a reference to a certain paragraph in a certain law that you can in one click open on the same regulation.gov.ua website and double check if you need to learn more.
Government has to open up the more data as possible, but it has to listen to business and startups on what data sets are the most valuable and have priority in opening those data sets. Second of all, that government should pay more attention to quality of data. The highest quality of data, the most likely that businesses will use it.
Спонсори цього відео So this is how it is, and I guess this video has been supported by the skyscrapers of Kiev. You already have Katarina here, and I would like to tell you that Katarina is now going to introduce all the speakers. And once again, the topic of the discussion, the open data as the Ukrainian economics driver. So please welcome once again Katarina Oniloglu, Transparency and Accountability in Public Governance and Services, the TAPAS project. And I would like to invite to join me here. Please welcome Alexei Vyskop, Vladislav Kryklin, Alexei Honcharuk, and Fiona Smith. Please, I would like to get all of you coming to the panel. So please take a seat and let us start. Let us start our discussion. So today we have heard a lot that we've heard this magical number, $700 million. So if we just compare it to the other European countries, when we have more than $1 billion that is still comparatively large amounts of money. And I do believe that we still have skeptical people among our audience that would say that it can't be 700 million. So I have a question to Alexei. In what way we can talk about it that this open data is going to have this kind of economical impact for Ukraine, and what are the mechanisms and what are the benefits of the open data we have in Ukraine? Good idea, friends and colleagues. I'm skeptical myself, and I would like to say that it's very important for all of us, and it's very important that for the first time at this level here in Ukraine, we're trying to speak about the impact of the open data and the economical impact of economic data, economic value of open data. And if we'll analyze all of your good slides of the story of open data, so if we'll have this history of open data in Ukraine, then mostly our focus and our spotlight of the open data, it was about the value, about the transparency, about the access, which is very important for our country. But then again, the question of the economical potential of open data hasn't been covered yet. And we do understand that is also connected to the stage of the development of the open data in Ukraine. We're now at the very first stage of development, and now we have the prevalence of the transparency and anti-corruption components of the open data, because every citizen has seized the massive of the data that has used to be closed data. They're starting to analyze whether everything is in place, whether there are no mistakes, whether there are no violations. And these are most of the examples that I'm working with on a daily basis. One of these examples was quite an everyday life example when we've had this e-cabinet of the carrier presented. And there's not only the services for the carriers, there's also the possibility for the representatives of the civil society, just like every citizen, to check whether every shuttle bus or every taxi, whether they have the license, whether they have the license to operate the routes. And I have been talking to the representatives of one of the civil organizations in one of the cities, and I've told them about this service, and they've said, like, okay, now I'm going to be able to check our deputy mayor, because I believe he's working with the shuttle buses, and I will check how many vehicles he actually has, and does he have a license to operate this route. So this is the real benefit of the open data, and a lot of other countries have also started with that. But I do believe that nowadays we will also add another focus, another spotlight for the open data usage, the economical impact, so which is also very important for our country, to know that the data that we're opening, the efforts that we're investing, and it's a very big struggle for us, so that the publishing of this data has had the economical impact. And if, Katya, you're asking me, how do I understand this number, 700 million? How do I understand what is the economical impact of the open data? I might not be 100% ready to answer this question, but I do believe we have a lot of experts in place. We have international experts, we have the representatives of civil society who know how to use the open data, and I do believe that after this forum we will have the answers to these questions and will be able to treat the open data in a new way. This year, as we already has said, there was a lot of important steps taken, and if you take a look at the international experience, then everyone is saying that the open data is very impactful by creating new product, by simplifying and facilitating the managerial decisions, managerial solutions, that they also have the economical effect. But in order for us to counted on in a good way. So we had a complex study in place. We had a very important step made. We were based on the methodology Capgemini, and the Kyiv School of Economics, supported by TAPAS, we have conducted this study. And this year, we have started with the first baseline, which is very important for our understanding and the further planning. So what we received, we have $700 million, the influence of the open data on the economics of Ukraine. So this number is made of two, so $200 million and $500 million. $200 million is the direct influence, the direct impact. It has been counted based on the service and products that have been developed by the company. So basically, this is the direct profits of the businesses after developing the new projects. And 500 million, this is the indirect effect that has been calculated based on the profits that are going to be gained by the final users of the services and products that were based on the open data. We also have a good horizon of the waiting, so if we're going to continue working in the same tempo, then we have the potential to grow to $1.4 billion, and I do believe that this number that we have to fight for and we have to head to. So if you have seen the video on the level of the European Union, you have seen the number mentioned, 55 million euro. This is the number from the final report of the European Union. This is the direct market size, and we understand what is the potential of the open data, of the market of the open data, and how important it is to speak about the economics and to speak about what are the tools of the gaining the economical effect of open data. And I do hope that our current forum is going to be the big driver, big engine to continue developing the economical potential of the open data. Thank you, Alexei, but I have just one more question to you, because we're not only speaking about 700 millions, we're also saying that the government has to do something in order to get this number doubled in a couple of years. So what is the government doing in this direction? How are we moving in this direction currently? Well, if we are speaking about the current tasks that we have, I would like to identify three priorities, the top three priorities we're working nowadays. The first would be to provide the accessibility for both services for citizens and businesses for the high quality data. And we're now doing it by introducing the updated portal online Open Data Go UA. There are a lot of new functionalities. We have the pre-moderation in place, and we already mentioned it a bit. So we do hope that the new portal is going to be the resource. We will try not to come up to the mistakes that we had in the first version of our portal. So we would like to provide the high quality data. We want to make it accessible for the citizens, and thus we're going to stimulate the usage of the data that we're opening and publishing. And then again, the second task and priority that we're working, the support of your initiatives and your ideas by conducting the corresponding contests. And I do believe that the Open Data Challenge is a good example of it. So we're going to have the final results of the second contest that we've had. And I do believe that the projects that are going to be presented today, and those are 15 projects, they're much stronger than we've had last year. They're using the open data. They're using Data Go UA, unlike the last year's projects. And I do believe that this is a very good example on how we support financially, expertly, how we're supporting your projects, your ideas, in order to show the new models of the economical effect you can have by using the open data. And the third priority, if I can mention top three priorities for our agency, then this is, let us say, the target measure. The target measures to open the most important and most valued data. We do believe that we are all headed by the Declaration 835, and there's a lot of demand from the citizens on opening the data. But the data that will give us a lot of the economical effect or social impact, there are not that many registers and data that we can open, data sets we can open. So we are once again being specialized in the target measures and target aiding measures for different governmental bodies to opening the data. And I do believe that the Service Center of the Ministry of Internal Affairs is a very good example of it, and I do believe my colleague is going to tell you more about it. This is my answer. Thank you, Alexei, and we would like to turn to Vladislav quickly, because Vladislav has just recently A couple of weeks ago, the Service Center for the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine has given us the access to the primary registration of the vehicles, and we have created the e-cabinet of the carrier. And many times in our projects we provide an additional training for the public officers, and we're telling them, like, if you're interested about the data you would like to have, if you have some data you would like to open, and what kind of data to open, ask the citizens. And Vladislav, there's an interesting case. He posted on Facebook and he asked what are the open data that the citizens are interested in. So I have a question to Vladislav. How did you have the desire to open the data, and who's going to have all the profits from it?
First of all, I'd like to greet all of you. I'm glad to see the representatives of the business community. I know that there are lots of precise business cases which are expecting for additional open data sets for us and services, and I hope that gradually we'll work together. But I would like to speak not only about the economy and the drivers which open data gives, but first of all about the emotions. Well, because open data as it is gives the wow effect, first of all. We can not always assess which is the impact onto economy, but I'd like to say that I'm really sure that all of the data which are not personal have to be open. They have to have easy and convenient access. Who is winning of that? There are lots of multitude of requests which are diverse, precise, broad. We are trying to process them every day. It concerns the main service center and lots of other state organizations, and we spend time for that. We waste time of the state officials who are working on that, and you can just get it in several clicks. The business spends lots of money onto the marketing research and the research of the market. Petrivka has earned on that, but this scheme will be just liquidated. And the most important thing, the citizen, with the help of the open data, with the help of the business, which creates certain convenient data sets and services, and the state involved in that can get, without having any certain skills or experience, a really broad and detailed information he's interested in. Before that, it was all closed. Before that, it was not that easy to get. Now it's much easier. Now the situation is better. So now I want to say, Katerina has mentioned the situation when we just began the work with the open data. I just created a very simple request in Facebook. Who was interested to, and in what information are you interested to get by the main service center and the Ministry of Internal Affairs? And we instantly got lots of answers. The vehicles, registration, and just 2.5 months passed. The information can be found at the open data. And as for the skeptical opinions, who needs this information, the figures really impress us. At the open data bot, this is the most popular request. As for the check of the registration plate of the vehicle, as for the primary registration and the new vehicles, the service already has more than 100,000 of unique requests from the citizens. So if you ask who needs that, the figures are answering. Thank you, Vladislav. Do you have any interesting cases? Maybe someone said, I had an issue, but I used the data and I solved my problem. Maybe any of the live cases. Who are those 100,000 people? Who are they? 100,000 are the businesses who used to work with that, and they got this information in a manual regime and had to process it. But now they don't have to go to us. They can get it in the free access with several clicks. Go into data.gov.ua and working with the service at texty.org.ua cars. I must have had a very interesting discussion, but unfortunately it didn't happen, when we liquidated or just annulled the business scheme where the person traded the data, closed data at that moment, but the data which has to be open. This is as for the registration of the transport companies and dealers who were actively using this information to get to know where the market is moving into of both electrical cars and their competitors. They spent lots of money on that, but today, with their own forces and efforts, with their marketing departments, they can process this information, they can hold the research, and in fact earn or save money, to be more precise, additionally supporting the economy of open data. And I have one more question to you. Do you have anything in plans as for the opening of data? Because this registration of vehicles has become the most popular. Maybe you will create any more surprises this year. Well, this year, if we speak about open data, we'll have several more services which are rather convenient, because after the publishing of these sets of services and open data, we had certain applications to check more specific or peculiar services. I will even name the example. There was one company which knocked at our door, a very big supplier of medical equipment, and they told a very bad case that very often when they hire a company which performs expedition of the goods, they gave fake certificates of registration, and then the goods just vanished during the logistics. Just for those cases you will be able to check the information through this service. So very soon we'll issue it, and we're all expecting now of this e-cabinet, because this is a kind of an announcement, and it will be a final accord, because it will contain all the information in the convenient format, and the most important is that it will have precise services, because very often we, for instance, say that EQ is a service. No, the service is already the delivery of the end service. When the citizen doesn't have to run anywhere to wait in the queue or to ask the state official, but can get all of that distantly. We have several e-services already, but up till the end of the year there will be more of them. So this is the money into the digital economy, and let's wish victory of that. Now I'd like to go to our next speaker, Alexei, because I'd like to speak to you about your project and an inspection portal, for which, by the way, your office was nominated even for the Open Data Social Award. So I'd like to ask you, at this portal we can find more than 100,000 planned checks and so on. Would you please tell us which problems does this portal solve for the business? What does it give to us? What's the profit? Can I begin from afar? Yes, sure. Dear friends, I'm glad to see all of you here. I'm the head of the organization which has the name of the BRDO. This is the office and the big team which tries to work with the government and to help it to improve law. So we took away all the trash. If the rules are working wrong, we reformulated or reshaped it and changed. So during the last 2 years we had 20 decrees of the government checked. Why did I begin with that? Because I want to look at the open data through the lens of the state management or governance, through the prism how the government creates all of that and the state creates all of that. There are 2 points which are incredibly important. We have to remember that the majority of our rules have been born long ago, last or even the one before the last century, when one of the main problems the state tried to solve was the informational asymmetry. Who knows a bit of the theory of these things, you understand that informational asymmetry is a setup why the state, in the majority of cases, has to interfere in everything. Well, of course, we don't have precise figures, but according to our preliminary calculations, every 3rd paper can be cancelled if you provide the open data. If you provide the consumers with the open data, if you equalize the subjects of those informational relationship. So we personally, as the team, which in fact is very interested in the work of improvement of rules, we can see a huge potential in the opening of data and in deregulation, because we can cancel lots of things if we open the data in a proper way. If we give the consumers, the citizens, the lesser business in comparison with the bigger ones, the substantial amount of information for them to protect themselves from the violations and abuse. This is the first story. Secondly, we are not living in the 20th century when we had those issues, but in the 21st one. And the 21st one has a totally different model of economy. This is a reputational economy, when the main resources are not oil, gas, and everything which can be compared to that, but information and reputation. Both are about the open data. Both information, which is operated by the open data sphere, and reputation is what is generated as the result of the work with open data. Last year we have been working on the Streamline project, Highlight project, is Star Business Challenge, which we also presented to this respected ground, and it was the following: to explain, to make the rules of the state more comprehensive, for to business not to waste time, or the active people not to waste time into the mediators, the papers, the search of information. And as it seems to us, we did not fail. We succeeded. We now do this localization, but I tell you about that later. And this is the economy too, because when the not so much time is wasted, then you have more time and inspiration to earn money and to create. But now I'd like to speak about a very important point why the state interferes into our relationship. This is the safety or security. Besides the informational asymmetry, we have the issue of security, and security is what stimulates the state to create another huge part of law. Last year we were getting prepared for that, but this year we opened the new Highlight project, which targets the security. We want the Ukrainian society to get to know how to manage risks. We took all of the inspectional bodies and agencies. There are lots of them. Someone tells 52, someone tells 53, 4, 10. It's not that important, because lots of them are just pretending to be. No, we are not inspectional one, they say. But we won't have any contradictions now about that. There are dozens of institutions. We are working with 33 of them, which are checking something. They are walking, controlling, they try to review, and so on. And there is a very bad information for all of us. Because, do you remember, just several months ago there was a tragic case in Russia about the fire in the shopping mall. Lots of people died. How did our state react? We had checks. The Prime Minister said we should check all the shopping malls. What has happened after that? Would you raise your hand if you know what happened after that? Okay, one person knows what happened after that. We are paying the taxes to them. When I say them, I mean this abstract state, that is, to us. The people went, spent our money, checked more than 500 objects in Ukraine as for the safety. In Kiev there are more than 100 of such objects, where daily each of us goes to see movies or with our friends or anywhere. What do you know about the safety or security of those objects? We've spent resources to get to know, to clarify, but what do you know about that now? And now I will show you the situation from the other side. You are the inspector. For instance, the fire inspector. You come into the shopping mall. How can you make the owner of the shopping mall to invest $100,000 into security? How? With the recommendation? With the court file? Really? Seriously? It is not working. You need to understand those are the tools of the 20th century. In the reputational economy, the strongest economic stimulus is when we checked all of those guys, we need to explain to the society where it's safe to go and where it's not safe to go. And the society will vote with money. This is the ambitious aim we have in the framework of the inspectional portal. What can be found already now is a huge piece of job, the huge team which had to be on the stage. They are our big respected IT guys, because there is a very big group of people behind this project. But what I'd like you to know, while we are trying to fight with the interference of the state, and while we clarify the issues with the security in the open data, it won't work. especially in our country, in the 21st century, the papers, all the court files and the trials are not working. That is why we're planning, since next year, to tell to the society in the format of open data to create big data for every single person who is interested in safety, to get the information, to aggregate it, to work with it, to create huge opportunities for the insurance companies. By the way, as for the insurance, this is the issue too. If we have the real insurance and whether they can calculate the modals, this is the problem. So for the banks, which can look at which company is fair to the security, not to the rules or regulations. We can say that the rules are obsolete and Soviet, they are bad, and that's why we do not perform them, but we cannot say anything bad about the security. That is why the main aim and why we invest now a huge pace of time into the inspectional portal is to clarify the issue with the safety or security in our country. Because when we see who's safe, who's not safe, and we begin to vote with our money, we will create the normal economic stimuli for the fair business, which cares about its clients and about its partners, about those who live around them, to get the competitive advantage, which is also a huge economic effect, which we intend to use this year. Now, at our portal, you can find more than 40,000 real checks. Not only in the format of scanned documents or papers, but also deciphered according to certain key parameters. Next year we'll issue, well, I will not tell you but in details, but cool services on work with that. But we do understand that it is not enough. That is why we want to open this data as much as possible in the best traditions of our ideology. Thank you so much, and let's have respect for each other. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know, you have told us very interesting numbers, a lot of inspections that you made and online things. But do you know, when I was looking at this portal, there's one thing that I didn't find there. What I didn't find there is the data of the state fiscal services and the data of the state fiscal inspections. And you know, every person in Ukraine knows that the businesses are mostly afraid of the fiscal services. And what is going on with that, this inspection portal? Like, you know, this is it can be only positive. So, like, you know, we're keeping working with that. We're trying to push them. But you know, we can't make everything overnight. So we started with something easier. So the agency of the EU governments, the constructors, the ecologists. There's a lot of people, and not only the tax people. So we need to push them. So once again, no provocations, but actually Nasirov's being fired from his position has no connection to our work, so no. But you know, I saw that you wanted to tell us some kind of a news and announcement. Yes, I've forgotten. They're gonna kill me. Yes, they're gonna kill me. I was supposed to say that we have no, in a different way. So well, again, looks about it. API the API is already working, free of charge, open, accessible. So test it, give us the feedback. We're going to continue working it. So we did everything on the technical side for you to be able to work with data. So we will give you as much as it possible. So give us the feedback on what you're lacking, what you need more. We will continue working with our inspection boat. So everything that I've mentioned before, it's not only about the IT solutions. It's also about changing the ideology of the inspectors, changing the mentality of the inspectors. So for the last 6 months, we've been working with those inspections. We were working with people who cannot tell the difference between the Excel file and Word file. So this is something that you have to clarify to people and explain to people. I'm not going to give a description of it for you not to shock you, but we have the API in place. You can continue working with that. So if you want that, then we're always online. You can always contact us. Yes, thank you. That is a good news for all of us, and I do believe that a lot of services who are of the people who are already here, that you'll be able to use your APIs. Yes, thank you. But another thing that I would like to address a question to Fiona, because Fiona, first of all, she is the author of the study that we already been talking about, and Fiona has been working with Ukraine for quite a long time already. She has helped us a lot, and she has given us the best international practices that we're now implementing in Ukraine and now using in Ukraine. But I would like to turn to Fiona with a different question. In what way, how the results of this study that we had in Ukraine, how it can be compared to other countries? Are we doing well, or we still have to grow more? So give us an update from your international experience, Fiona.
Great. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me here. It's my second time at Ukraine's Open Data Forum, and in the last 12 months I can say how much I've seen the movement grow with new announcements and new portals being released all the time. So just want to say congratulations to begin with. In answer to your question, I think Ukraine is already modelling to the rest of the world what it means to take open data seriously, not just from an anti-corruption and transparency point of view, but to take it seriously in terms of motivating more citizens, businesses, developers to actually use the data, to put it into practice, to create real economic benefit. I think the starting point for that is actually understanding the value of the data that you have. So research like this that Alexei mentioned provides an important baseline that you now have to work with, and you can use that as a tool for making the case, whether it's internally to a government agency that is trying to make the calculation of the cost-benefit analysis of opening data, or whether it's speaking to a private sector organisation to try to convince them to consider opening some of their data that, when combined with government open data sources, could really create a valuable new service. And we know that this can happen in places like the UK, where I'm based at the moment. We've seen the value that can be really released when you have that mentality of government working with businesses to understand the data needs of citizens, and then to release data and provide it in a format that people want and can use. For instance, in the transportation sector in London alone, about 600 different applications are now powered by open data that was released by Transport for London. So they release data about bus timetables, alerts, real-time status updates. And now 42% of Londoners, and I'm one of them, rely on that data every day to get around. And it saves time. It also saves money for the government agency to not have to create these services themselves, and to not have to spend a lot of money on, expensive publicity campaigns to say, hey, the data's out there, because you have developers that know what can be done with it and are producing valuable commodities. So I've already had a glimpse of how new applications are already being developed in the Ukraine, and I have no doubt that over the coming years we will start to realise those figures that were projected in the report.
Thank you, Fiona. Also, thank you for your kind words. But from your perspective and your experience, maybe name me 2-3 advice, because here there are great people from government sitting and the users. Maybe 1-2 steps we should take in Ukraine to make it better.
Okay. First of all, I think you're doing a lot of things right already. So I think a lot of people can learn from what you're doing. For example, actually putting the question out to citizens, what data do you want? Like, that's incredible, and you'd be surprised that many government agencies in the UK are definitely not thinking that way and are still having internal arguments. So that's a great approach to start with. But fundamentally, I think we can do a lot as a broader community to increase the discoverability and usability of data. And that's just not from a technical point of view. So there are technical things you can do, like adopting shared standards and supplying the data in machine-readable format, of course. But it's also doing a lot of public engagement to let people, businesses, startups know that this data is available, can be used, and what the potential is. One of the exciting developments that I'm very happy about is the decision of Google, for example, to launch a new search engine for open data sets. So I think that's going to bring us a range of benefits in terms of being able to link different sources of open data, including government open data portals, but also digital libraries, open data sets from researchers. So the more we can discover what open data is out there in a machine-readable format, the more that we can link and the more insights that can continue to drive. So I think discoverability and community engagement is really among some of the most important steps that you can take to improving the uptake of open data.
We definitely heard you. Я думаю,
Well, I do believe that we're going to listen to Fiona's advice and our further strategies, but what we still have is a couple minutes more, and you have some opportunities to questions. So please raise your hand. Oh, we have a lot of questions. I see those hands. So please raise your hand and we will pass you the microphone. So Alexei Ivankin is the first to start because everyone knows Alexei already. Good day, Alexei Ivankin, Open Data Boat co-founder. Vladislav, thank you very much for your work, for the data that you have published. But then again, I think I'm not going to be the first and not the last who is always going to question you when we will have the win numbers there. It's very simple. It's not personalized data. It's a small string that can actually change all of the sphere of the open data in the transport sphere. Thank you, Alexei. You're making me given some spoilers. I haven't voiced out the full list of the services, and it's going to be presupposed by the Declaration 260, so we'll have the vehicle history, and we're going to check the VIN codes, and I do believe it's going to be a fantastic service when you'll be able to check how many owners your vehicle had, whether your car has been involved in some kind of accidents, and even the service maintenance at the main stations. But okay, services is good, but the open data is a bit different. I will explain you what I mean. That is why, because we're going to have a check in place and it's going to be a prepaid service, then there is some competition between the openness and the prepaid services. Part of the data, the open data we have already provided, just like today's Carfax and Car Check services, they provide part of the data on the open basis and the more detailed information you will receive on the prepaid basis. And I do believe that the state in this case have the right to get some money out of it, out of offering the services. But what I want to say, give us some more questions, give us some more critique. We're really ready to listen to you, and in my opinion, with your help and with our partners, we have this informal and formal competition between the governmental bodies on the open data, and it is something that is very good. If beforehand we had a competition between them, how many inspections you will have or how much money your head will earn, but now we are competitive on how many services we will create and who will provide more open data. Thank you. I think that the question we had, a lot of people had this question, and I'm really great that we worked to this. So we have another gentleman here. Please give us your question and introduce yourself. Good day, RBK Ukraine, Klim Bratkivsky. We have just a couple of questions. Okay, just one question. Okay. So at the Data.gov.ua portal, we don't have information from the Ministry of Education, whether this ministry ignores you or up to 2016 on the private-owned site, there was a possibility to check the diplomas on the higher education, whether they are real. Right now, the service isn't working. So whether there are some services that you would like to do about that, because the employers would like to clarify that, whether the diploma on higher education is true or not, or false. So we don't have anyone representatives from the Ministry of Education. Yes, according to 835 declaration and the new 1100, the Ministry of Education has to publish the data. They do not do it yet. We have conducted the monitoring together with the agency. We have had some measures when we've got all the counterparts and we've voiced out the results of our monitoring, but I do believe that we will have the opportunity to pursue the Ministry of the Education to publish this data, but now we don't have this data in place. I do believe that we now have the 835 declaration, that this is your right as the citizen or as the representatives of CSO to address the Ministry of the Education why they're not publishing this data, even though they're obliged to do that according to the legislation. And I do believe that everyone is going to be very grateful for you to that. And I would like to tell you there is just one normative mechanisms of how we can gain person to responsibility through the Ombudsman of Ukraine. And unfortunately, it might not be very effective, but yes, it is in place. On the agency, we are always publishing these monitorings. We're providing these monitorings to the Ombudsman. The process is in place, but as Alexei has said, one by one and according to the priorities. Yes, unfortunately, not everyone is that progressive at the service centers and others. Like, if you'll give me a list of what they should publish, in your opinion, first of all, like, we know we're working very actively with them. The Ministry of Education, there will at least in those spheres that we're working with them, they're very progressive, they're very modern. So I do believe there might be some other reasons. So if you will just give me an update on what they should publish, in your opinion, for the first, then like in a couple of minutes, I will just ask them to do that. I don't know whether it will help or not, but well, then again, I do believe it will facilitate the process. Well, I really love it that at this forum, the people find the common interest and they find the good contacts and they can start the shared action. So I have one more bit of time for one more question. It will be a short question because the next panel is going to be very important also. So one last question. So you had your hand up. So let us start with Irina. Good day, Chernish Irina, Safe AccuBots, and the question to Alexei on the opening of data, on the sanitary legislation compliance. Whether we can see the results now, whether they're already available for the citizens and for the activists. Yes, they're already those inspections are also given the results on their inspections, on their inspections this year. We had started as a pilot, like, of course, because you have to understand what inspection is. Inspection is the huge number of people all around Ukraine in the regions, and in order to provide 100% of the information provided, there's not only the technical decision, the technical solution that has to be in place. There are some people don't have the internet, some has this computer from like prehistorical times. So not all of the inspections are already being in the portal, but we have a good ambitious aim to the end of the year to have all of the inspections in place and to cover all of the inspections, but we're still not there. So I cannot give you a guarantee, I cannot give you the word that we have all of the inspections in place and published, but I do believe that at least every cert is there. So yes, the information is already available. Yes, it's already available because we tried to get authorized that and we didn't manage to do that. Okay, let us say like any kind of practical question, you can actually address me in the social network, or we can talk privately, so we will try to solve it, because I do believe we're going to have a lot of technical questions. But the main message, what I wanted to give you, that this information is now being opened and being accessible, and we're going to pack it in that way so it would be compliant in the open data format, and it will be available to all of the people. Thank you very much, and I would like to thank all of our panelists, not only for joining us at the forum, but also for their impact in the development of the open data in Ukraine. Thank you, dear colleagues, and let us give the place and give the stage to next very interesting panel. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And there are some questions from Facebook here. Katya, I will send all of the questions to you. Good. And in order to you could answer it, but I will have another remark on that. So there is a question from journalists. And by the way, the BuzzFeed, the American edition, the American issue is said that we're not using open data because the open data is not credible for the journalists investigators. So the journalist of BuzzFeed, he says, I cannot get the resource of the open data. I have to set the register of Minister of Justice. So please do create the more official conditions so that the journalists can do it easier.